There comes a time when we cannot look away, and that time came yesterday. So we started off this week with an election in one of the most divisive times of my life, in the most divisive time of my life, in the most split I have ever felt a country to be. And then came the shootings, so the energy of this dissent, the energy of this confusion and this being against one another just became even more heightened by Wednesday. And then suddenly the fires came in and just took it all to a even more heated level. And it's easy for us to just decide to look away. It's easier for us to find ways to take our minds off of it. And yet, our minds can't stay off of it. Our minds must stay focused on it from truth. There comes a time when we cannot look away, and that time came yesterday. That came from three, teenager young adults. You're all teens still, aren't you? Yeah. All three of you are still teens. That came from three teenagers. That says to me, the hope of the future is great. Because this generation will no longer stand for what our generation seems to be okay with. Or at least our generation isn't doing enough to change. The divisiveness. It's like we're living in the Civil War all over again. And so it takes a heat, or as Ernest Holmes calls it, a fire in the belly, which then manifests itself in a fire in the world. The fire in the belly, which is the inspiration, the passion that comes forth when we decide to turn everything around. So the beginning of their song is every morning the chorus, every morning there's a light in our eyes, reminder of a brand new day. We do wake up every day with this new day before us, this new possibility, if we're willing to know that. And then they say, dark clouds sometimes blur the sunshine, but it's shining anyway. So regardless of what we're looking at, there is truth behind it, shining at all times. There comes a time when we cannot look away, and that time came yesterday. And other lyrics, they have no more blood-stained children, no more broken hearts, no more love kept silent. We've taken this way too far, right? Well, I think that's a good directive. No more violence, just love, love only. And we've taken much of this way too far. People thinking that they have the right to tell others what to do is why I got into this religion and no other religion. A religion that basically says you're responsible to create your own experience, your own world, your own life. Well, we can't turn that off when we see a world in chaos. We must take that energy, know it's the truth, not let the world tell us what it is. And as she says, it's time to push back. We got to push and move on. We have to push the truth out there and move on. So when I was trying to think what I wanted to say today, I received a text from Al Welland, who used to be our director of operations, and now his wife, Marcy Welland, is our director of operations. They're out of town, and he wrote me this text, and I had rewritten it to read to you today anonymously, and I told them that, and he said, absolutely not. We have all been anonymous way too long. I want my name attached to this. So here's what he wrote me, which is the nightmare every minister waits for, someone challenging our teaching. And he said, James, I am truly trying to wrap my head around how the events from the last week, let alone days, mass killings of college kids out for a good time, and now the fire, which has produced untold destruction and again loss of life and property, our rabbi's house burned down as well. At this point, many congregants, how could any of this be unfolding perfectly? He said, I'm sure I'm not alone in my feelings of emptiness and despair. Any words of encouragement, understanding would be greatly appreciated. My first response to this was, 3 magic words. I don't know. You thought I was going to say, I am God, right? But the first thing that came to me was, I don't know. How could I presume to know the answer to that question? I believe I know, and I believe what I believe, that life is unfolding perfectly regardless of what I'm seeing. But I don't know why. I don't know why these things happen. I just know the truth behind them. So while my first response is I don't know, my second response is I do know. I do know. It's just that sometimes I'm hypnotized by what I see. And when I get hypnotized by what I see, the fires, the shootings, the politics, when I let myself be hypnotized, or as Eric said, I let myself get caught up in all the tweets, all the MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, every pundit that talks about this from their perspective, of course, and from their agenda, of course, I can be hypnotized. And when I'm hypnotized, I've lost my mind. I have lost the ability to use my mind. I've lost the ability to think from and as God. I am now thinking and reacting in the relative world of form. Ernest Holmes said this. He said, in treatment, turn entirely away from the condition. In treatment, turn entirely away from the condition. And yet these teens wrote, it's time to stop turning away and to actually be able to look at what we see and transcend it, change it. So why does he say turn entirely away from the condition? He doesn't. He says in treatment, turn entirely away from the condition. Meaning, regardless of what you're seeing, it is time for us to stop seeing what we're seeing, know the truth, and put that truth back in play as we look again. It's time for us all to look again at what we're seeing in the world from the truth. And if you feel sucked into it, you feel hypnotized by it all, it is time to turn away from the condition, get in touch with the truth that you know is you, is God, and then turn it back on. Don't stay there and try to hide it. Turn it back on. That's our job, to heal. Our job as mental scientists is to take the conscious mind and let it expand the way it does so that it can permeate every situation, no matter what the situation is. And there are people in our congregation who have lost their homes, who have lost everything. My son's girlfriend's mother lost her entire ex-girlfriend, thank you. His ex-girlfriend's mother lost her entire estate on the top of Malibu Canyon. Millions and millions of dollars. Just down to the ground. But she's alive, and so are all of her children and all of her pets. I heard some of you tell me how interesting it was to be evacuated and say, what do I take? What's important to me? And isn't it really that at the end of the day, nothing's important? Because it's all just stuff in the world of form. But when you step away and have your heart and your soul and your loved ones, you have hit the jackpot. And that's how we have to look at this. No, I didn't lose anything in terms of my belongings, and I'm conscious of that how I speak about this has to take into consideration that there are people, Cindy Weinstock, who her house burned down, member of our congregation, Dr. Maureen, her house didn't burn down, but it was damaged. So there are people that are struggling to see what we can help them see by seeing the truth. Because I can tell you, people call me because most people know I will not give in to the relative. It may have hit me for a moment, but you can count on me, which we'll sing at the end of service. You can count on me to, if my first thought isn't the truth, the second one is. If my second one isn't, I call someone who has the first thought. Because that's where we have to be with this. So, Paramahansa Yogananda said this life is not man's own show. If he becomes personally and emotionally involved in the very complicated cosmic drama, he reaps inevitable suffering for having distorted the divine plot. In other words, we have to find a way not to get so involved in the drama. And you know what the best way is to not get involved with the drama? Love. If you focus your attention on loving those in need, those who are perhaps stuck in the drama, you're out of the drama. Because as Mother Teresa said, you cannot love and do anything else at the same time. You can't love and be in fear. You can't love and have regrets. You can't love and also hate simultaneously. You can't. If you love only, everything else handles itself. And if you love only and pour it out here where it is needed, you're too busy to get involved with the drama, with your story. But the problem is that some of us, while we are trying to love out here, we are actually pouring our love out here, listening to what's coming in and becoming what's coming in, as opposed to pouring the love out. That's our job today. Every person in this room, every person at any event right now who's watching us, that's our job. We have a responsibility because we have to start looking at what we teach. There's a power for good in the universe, greater than you are, and you can use it. You can use it because you are it. So there's a power for good in the universe greater than you are. That doesn't mean you're lesser than it. It just means there's a power for good in the universe that is so amazingly enormous and expansive that when you step into who you are it. But way too often we stay in the microcosm of the macrocosm. And we stay here. Here's who I am. No, I am the I am. So that's what we teach, this power for good. And as we stand here today, looking at all that's happened, it's too easy to start believing in a power for good and a power for bad, a power for evil. We can see the power for constructive good, and then we can see the power for destruction. But you know what? There is no such thing as the power of bad or the power of destruction. There's no such thing as the negative power in this universe. There just isn't. We teach that it's all God, it's all good, and we create from that, and sometimes we just create some really bad stuff. We do. And then we allow those things to become an entity. And Ernest Holmes is very clear saying, this is not an entity. Love is an entity. You can live love at any degree you want to live it. That's the power for good. You can live up here, you can live way down here, or anywhere in the middle. And you can allow some of these things out here to drag you into a consciousness that you don't want, but it just kind of hypnotizes you and takes you along with it. So I wanted to talk about faith today because when I started with I don't know, what I do know is that I have a very deep faith. And when I get questions like that from Al or anyone, and I have a lot of them in my classes, you all know that, people who challenge this teaching and say, how can that be so with this? And we need to lose the with this. It is so. Now allow this to inform you. Allow these fires, the shootings, the divisive politics to inform you in a way of you being able to say to yourself, who am I? Who do I choose to be in the center of this? Do I choose to be part of the divisiveness? And in order to be part of the divisiveness, you have to join the argument. And I mean argument, because I do believe it is possible to have intelligent conversations about politics without being divisive and without making the other person wrong. But we are so busy. The Democrats are so busy making the Republicans absolutely wrong and vice versa. And the independents are just freaked out. Don't know which side to go to. But you know how we'll get over this? When we take the heat out of it, we stop being hypnotized by the divisiveness and actually just speaking to one another about what we believe. I think it might be fascinating to hear what someone on the other side of your political opinion believes and why they believe it. And give them that. Give them the opportunity to speak that. Give them the opportunity to explain why they believe that. I've done it, and it's changed my perspective on a number of counts. Same thing with these fires. Same thing with any kind of destruction. You know, Dr. Maureen was supposed to give a keynote speech on Friday night, but she couldn't get out and her house had had damage and she was being evacuated again. So I went to give it in Englewood. And it was a mostly Black community, which I didn't know. And when I walked in, I felt so loved. These people were so like, oh my God, we're so glad you came. There was no color in that room. There was just people, loving people. And I was giving a talk to a part of our city that really wasn't part of what was going on way out in our world. And I brought it up and I explained what was going on. And it was very interesting to be able to speak of it from truth. It was almost like I was called forth to heal my own mind that night. Because my husband said to me, he said, why did you think you should go give a lecture tonight when you've been like on the phone all day with people? I said, I don't know, but I just figured I'd be of service. Well, I wasn't of service. That congregation was of service to me by giving me the opportunity to be funny. They didn't know any of my Broadway shtick. I got to do it all. It's so nice to be in a room where I can say all those things over again. Yes. But what I really came back to was, I have a great faith. I actually have a deep, deep, deep-seated faith after 20 years in this science. Not 20 years. 26 years in this science. I have such a deep-rooted faith. I believe that everything is unfolding perfectly. In the midst of everything I see, there's a part of me that fully believes that. Now, will I say that to a woman that's lost her child? Of course not. How do you figure, how do you make sense out of that when you are the person that just lost a child? I spoke to a member of our community whose son was in that bar on Wednesday night. And what I was told was that they were a group of kids that one of them wanted to go vape and decided to go out onto the balcony to have a vape. 2 minutes later, they were on the balcony when the shooting happened here. 2 minutes earlier, they'd have been right in the entranceway. And they were able to jump over the fence and get into the bushes and hide. Now, does that mean they're lucky and these people weren't? No. It means that there is some divine plan that I just don't know what it is, but I trust and believe it is for the highest and for the best. Not the deaths, not the sadness, not the sorrow, just the absolute world of the divine. Same thing with fires. When you harvest, you have to burn down a crop in order to grow up a new crop. We are witnessing, I believe, the burning away of a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. And we perhaps have an opportunity to step back into what wants to grow from here, what wants to come up from here. So faith, a firm belief, trusting in something for which there is no proof. And Ernest Holmes said, faith is a mental attitude so inwardly embodied that the mind can no longer deny it. One of our biggest problems is our minds, believe it or not. It's our greatest asset and our biggest problem, because we let our mind argue ourselves away from knowing what we innately know. We let our intelligence start telling us, well, look at this, 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 and this. How can that be true? And yet something in you is blazing up saying, it is true. You don't need to see it to believe it. You need to believe it to see it. That's where we stand today. So I decided at the end of this talk, I wanted to ask for any questions you might have that you would like me to clumsily shed light on. And I shouldn't even say that because I'm not clumsy. I will very easily answer anything you have to question. Anyone? This is so my room. All right, then, yes? Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
Tell us more about this Broadway career.
If you didn't hear him back there, he asked for me to talk about my Broadway career. Well, I started singing. Do you have one?
There's times that since Thursday that I feel sad and I don't know what if that's appropriate, or whether I should be trying to move away from that, or feel it. And so I'm trying to figure out how to process that.
Absolutely. Did you all hear that?
Yeah.
No. There are times Thor said that he feels sad, and he questions whether he should be working to move that along or feel it. And I would honestly say that if there's one person, anyone in this room who has not felt sad this week, then you need to come talk to me. Yeah, we need to check your pulse, because I have felt sad. I've had tears today during this service when they sing their song. I'm reminded when they say no more blood-soaked children, no more ash in the sky. So I have sadness. And when sadness comes to me, I don't believe we should be a spiritual community that sticks our head in the sand. We're not the ostrich community that it's all good, it's all God. It is all good and it is all God, and this is happening. And when I feel sad, I know sadness is there for a reason. Sadness brings intelligence, brings a heightened understanding of what's going on, what you feel. Ernest Holmes says that feeling is the most motivating energy in the universe. And if your treatment, when you pray, if you don't feel what you're praying, you're not kind of doing anything. You're just spouting out words. So sadness is a feeling, and I would never push it away. I wouldn't. The only time I would try to move through sadness is if it were affecting me in a way that I felt it was hurting me. And then, as Ernest Holmes said, somewhere in that long textbook, he says, there's nothing wrong with sadness, there's nothing wrong with any of those feelings, so long as they don't turn morbid. It's the morbidity that's the problem. When you let sadness rule you, when you let sadness take you over. I believe, as a good religious scientist, you know how to feel what you feel and still know the truth behind it. And the more you stay in spiritual practice, the easier that gets. That's why I can stand here and say I have such strong faith, because I know that no matter what I'm feeling, no matter what I'm seeing, I have the faith that it's unfolding perfectly. And I can still be sad because I watch someone who, as it's unfolding, it is not a pretty picture. And they are not having an easy time of it. I feel more sad about that. And yet, I can still know the truth, because that truth's going to change it. It's going to move through it and help it evolve. Yes, Lori?
I'm having a real difficult time with judgment on the election and the politics, and I'm angry and upset. So I welcome a bit of wisdom.
Well, in terms of politics, you know what? You can be angry, but what you're really angry about is that your opinions aren't being agreed with. In the end, that's all you're angry about. Because, for me anyway, because if life is unfolding perfectly, and I said this right when Donald Trump was elected, that's the man that deserves to be in the White House. He was equal to it. He got it. You may not be happy that that happened, but you know what? Once it happened, your job was to find a way to love in this situation. Because anything else you're doing, you're adding to the energy of the universe that causes the destructive, that causes the dissension. So, yeah, did all of my candidates get elected on Tuesday night? No. You know, was there a moment when I was like, oh, I really wish this person would have been elected? Yes, there was. But you know what? It was pretty quick after it that I reminded myself it's still unfolding perfectly. And whoever wins, they had the consciousness of winning. And the universe had the consciousness of that person winning. That's how it goes. We either believe that or we don't. And most of us, I will say, are like standing on this tightrope between I believe it, I don't. And that tightrope's so precarious, any moment you can fall off in either direction. I'm no longer on a tightrope. I'm on this side. This is the truth, and I see it all from the truth. That's our job. So spiritual practice, I hate to do that, but Carnegie Hall practice. Spiritual practice. You just, when you're feeling those things, divisiveness, anything when it comes to politics, for God's sake, just go back to spiritual practice. What do we know? There's only one thing, and that's God, and it's all good, and it's all evolving perfectly. And then still vote your conscience. So that's the spiritual practice, Lori, and you are a queen at spiritual practice, except when you forget.
We have a couple of online questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Donia wants to know, when this teaching suggests our own responsibility, how do we not take on self-blame when crap happens?
Well, blame is not a word I would like to use, but you do need to take on responsibility. When crap happens in your life, no matter what it is, even if you think you're a victim, because there's no such thing, somewhere in your mind, you are equal to whatever's going on. And that's such a hard thing to hear, but it is the basis of our truth. Now, I don't blame myself for that. I've created a lot of crap in my life. Anybody else? How many of you have created really crazy situations? Right, Corinne? I know. So I can blame myself for that, which, by the way, is just another stupid thing I'm doing. Or I can take responsibility and change it. That's what's so great about our teaching. We can change it. Change your beliefs, change your life. Change your thinking, change your beliefs, change your life. So, Donya, you're right there. So there's the answer. Yes, I take responsibility. Get out of the blame game.
One more. My sadness is, this is Lynn Marie Johnston. My sadness is from the youth who were shot down and killed. My anger is that gun control is so needed. What should I do about my anger?
Turn it into truth that gun control will be handled. That's what I know. I know that the best and the highest answer to this question about gun control will be answered. And if nothing else, I keep looking as though she's there. And if nothing else, know that there's a generation coming up that will no longer deal with it. So that's my solace. You know, I look at my generation and the generation even older than me who are steeped in some of these beliefs that are not helping us. But then I'm looking at the younger generation who don't even want you to tell them if they're male or female. You know, or who come up to me at the end of a service and say, from now on, would you please call me they? And I'm like, I'll try. I'll say, I may forget. I may say she or he or whatever comes out to me, but I will try to say they. And then this was a female and she said, and this is my new name. I said, I'll never remember it. I said, I just won't remember it. Tell me every time you see me, this is my new name. I love that generation. There's no judgment there. It's like, don't judge me. You don't even know who I am because you do not see who I am. So that's me. I feel great solace in what's coming up in the world. Martha.
No, I was going to say the online questions.
Okay, great. Anything else before I close us out? Why do your hand's like here? Go ahead, ask it.
Well, you sort of gone into it, but when I heard about all the kids that were shot and all the chance that they had to have a night free of college and have some joy, and I think of the things that we got and took it for granted in our generation, like, it just broke my heart that they'd never know the fun of being on El Jarvis or going to Hollywood Boulevard at the Grauman's Chinese when it wasn't taken for granted. And it was heartbreaking that they won't get there.
Right. Well, when this happened, the first thing I did was find Nora to hug her. See, I have sadness. The thought that that could have happened to my daughter or son, I would like to believe that I would still say exactly what I'm saying here today. I don't know if I could get it out, but I know I would believe it. And it would be the only thing that would get me through it. So I can give you the signs of mine answer to that question, which may not give you any relief, which is that life is eternal. Those children that were killed, their physical form is gone, but they are not gone. And I believe that. And I believe that life in its massive eternality, they probably can see Grauman's Chinese Theater now better than they could have if they went to see it or understand the energy of it. You know, I think of Anita Marjani's book, Dying to Be Me. And she explained when she was in a coma and just about dead, when they were declaring her dead, she was everywhere present all at once and a feeling of euphoria unlike she's ever been able to match. She knew everything, heard people in other parts of the world that were related to her, knew their conversations. And the way she describes it is so amazing. Brad Blaisdell, when he went there and they were practically declaring him gone, and he said that feeling, that love, that I knew everything and everything was perfectly organized. You know, when he came back and told me that, you know, I can't be a non-believer when this is what is coming to our understanding these days. So yes, in the practical world, if that had been Nora or Will, I would be despondent. In the spiritual world, I would also hope that I would understand that they were never far from me, that they were part of me and one of me at all times. So I invite you all to take a deep breath and close your eyes for a second if you would. And I'm going to daringly ask you to just bring up a beautiful flame in your eyes. A beautiful flame with the red and the yellow and the flickering. And understand the energy and the life that is in that flame. As Ernest Holmes says, the fire in the belly. What I know is that life is doing its perfect thing here in Southern California. I know that every life in this planet and beyond is guided from within, from that innate knowing, that flicker of light that is always shining and bringing us to the highest place of consciousness. And I bless and send my compassion and love to every single person who has been affected in any way, to all the feelings that are being felt. There is only one thing going on, and that is God, and that is love. And I know right here and right now that we are the love that is needed in this world to be relieved and to be brought forth. And so we bring it forth here today. I'm so grateful for everyone's questions. I'm so grateful for the conversation. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak to this and to know the truth from this. And I just step aside and let it be so. With love, with surrender, and with a faith and knowing that transcends everything else. Knowing this is so, I let it be so. As together we all say, and so it is. Namaste. Okay. You don't have to applaud.